I'm Tony Scott with bnetTV. We are here in Berlin at the Small Cell Global Congress. I am speaking with Analsys Mason's Mr. Chris Nichol. How are you today, sir?
Very well, thank you. How are you doing?
Excellent, very well. Thank you very much for coming on the show. And for all the people out there in bnetTV land, why don't you give us a brief overview of what you're doing here and where your house sits in the ecosystem?
So the reason we're here in Berlin, today is really talk about what's going on with small cells. When we think of wireless networks, we think of roaming around, driving down the highway, walking down the street, but we don't really think about how the technology is put together. From an industry perspective, there's a lot of problems we're trying to address. Capacity, spectrum constraints, small cells is one of those answers. I'm here to see what I can learn, but also if I can share some knowledge.
So let's talk about maybe some bullet points out of the research that you've developed over the course of the last little while here that you believe, as you're listening to people here, was correct.
So every operator is looking at small cells. Some are actually deploying, but they understand that this is one of the key ways to fix a problem. The other thing we're hearing is there's no one golden bullet. It's not just LTE, it's not HSPA+, it's not Wi-Fi, it's not necessarily 3G, it's everything put together. So the problem's gotten kind of complex, the solutions are even more complex. This is one of those solutions.
So I'm glad you brought that up, that the ecosystem is made up of a lot of different components, and all those components need to interact with each other. They need to talk to each other. There needs to be ubiquity. There needs to be interoperability, and the end consumer inevitably just wants to eat the OTT that they're actually getting and not drop.
Oh, you bet. We want our iPhone 5s to have full HD video. We want our Galaxy GS3s to just hum in our hands and bring everything into our hands that we have at home. I mean, increasingly, and this is what we've seen in some of our research, users don't think of a smartphone anymore as a phone. It's really more of a handheld computer, and they want to do more computer-like things, more connectivity, more bandwidth, more multimedia than they do phone stuff.
So what exactly are you going to be speaking about?
So on our panel tomorrow afternoon, we're going to be looking at all the technologies and how they work together to serve the consumer's needs.
Some of the people that I've had a chance to speak with here at the conference so far, we're kind of seeing a little bit of a 50-50 split about some people saying that deployment in the small cell technology arena is going to happen at a very fast pace. Some people saying, hey, it's going to happen, but it's not going to happen for a number of years.
I think it's going to take a little while for two big problems that have already been talked about here today. One is cost. When you talk about that many units going, and we're talking not just tens of thousands, but potentially hundreds of thousands of units, bringing that cost down is absolutely critical. We're not talking 5,000 macro base stations. We're talking literally millions of small cells. Cost is a real big issue. Backhaul is the other big issue. How do you take all these small cells and get them back into the network? We've heard line of sight, non-line of sight, microwave and radio. We've heard LTE. We've heard Wi-Fi as backhaul as well. There's all sorts of regulatory issues about where do you put these hotspots. So there's a lot of barriers to implementation. Not that they can't be overcome, but I think we're going to see a slower ramp up than most people expect.
I had a chance recently here to speak with Mr. Jean Grand-Louis from Deutsche Telekom. He said, hey, we've got more unlicensed spectrum than we have licensed spectrum right now, but that pendulum is going to switch or shift here within the next few years, and inevitably we're going to see small cell deployment within the licensed spectrum arena. It's going to take a little while, though, to get there.
Yeah, definitely, because now we can start looking from a small cell perspective at the higher order spectrum, so the 2, 3, 4, 5 gigahertz, because now you're not trying to cover a city center, you're trying to cover a building or a room or an area within, say, a shopping mall or a stadium. So those higher level frequencies really can come to play where they don't work well on the wide area network. So I can see why he's saying that, but I still think it's going to be a solution of unlicensed spectrum, Wi-Fi, licensed spectrum, cellular, and then the operators taking a look at service differentiation. What do I push across that Wi-Fi network? Bulk bandwidth, maybe lower priority, and what really has value to the consumer that I'm charging for, that I want to give back that value to them, and push that across my license spectrum, LTE, HSPA+.
So Chris, if you had to weigh in on how to bring down the costs of the inevitable units, is that just on scale alone, or is there other issues or hurdles that you think that the ecosystem has to get over?
I think there's some other hurdles right now. I do think we need to get the cost of radios down. I think we need to find some way to improve power supplies and bring that cost down a little bit. And a lot of this is just about shrinking the packaging. then we need to get a little bit better, a little smarter about just spectrum management. There's way too many bands that are available, not just for 3G, but especially LTE. So, the operators or the manufacturers now have to go through and sort what bands am I going to manufacture and what quantity. There's a lot of engineering things that I think have to happen, but I do think we're finally seeing the industry coming down to maybe 10 bands that they're going to agree upon worldwide for LTE. That's going to have a big impact. And then the rest of the engineering is just maturity, and we've seen those cycles before.
Finally, Chris, why is it important to be at conferences like the Small Cell Global Congress here?
So in one place, you get to talk to the people providing the services, so the operators, the vendors who are designing the equipment the operators are using. We also heard this morning a newspaper woman come in and talk about the importance of mobile and the apps and coverage, both indoor and outdoor, to her business. And that's who we really got to keep in mind. This isn't just about providing connectivity. This is about providing useful connectivity. Connectivity I can do something with that has value. You get that at these conferences where you can get everybody in a room, everybody talking, and you kind of get those aha moments of, oh, okay, that's why I'm doing this. Oh, okay, I need to follow up on that.
Everybody needs a pat on the reassurance that they're actually going down the right path. I like that.
Absolutely.
Fantastic. Chris, thanks very much for taking the opportunity to speak with us. I hope we get a chance to update in the future.
Thanks. Nice to be here.
Thank you. I've been speaking with Mr. Chris Nichol from Analysys Mason here at the Small Cell Global Congress in Berlin. I am Tony Sklar with bnetTV.